Hello, my name's Jenny. My mother's name is Alice. She's 80 years old, and this is our story. Mum lives in Greenleaf's residential home. She has dementia, atrial fibrillation, some arthritis, and had a stroke a few years ago. Mum can walk with her frame, recognise her family, and eat independently. A few weeks ago, Mum had a fall in the afternoon. She was on her own, so nobody saw what happened. The lovely staff at the care home called the ambulance. 2 friendly ambulance staff did a wonderful job of checking her over. By this point, I had arrived at the home. I'm a school teacher, and luckily for me, it was after my lessons had ended for the day. Anyway, my mum could not get up without some help, but was able to walk around the room with her walking frame. She did not feel dizzy and did not have any changes to her thinking. The ambulance staff said her observations were fine, but because she took warfarin, digoxin and some paracetamol, they felt it would be best to go to hospital to check. She didn't have any injuries to her head. Both Mum and I were reluctant to go to hospital because it was getting late, but we thought they know best. We arrived at the hospital and my mum sat in a chair as she didn't like their beds in accident and emergency. It was very busy and my mum got very anxious in that noisy space. They gave her some sedation and she had a scan of her brain. They were very thorough. There was no bleeding, thank goodness. The hospital staff then brought her back to the accident and emergency department. From there she was sent to a ward. We only wanted to go home and we were questioning, did we really need to be in hospital for this? They found she had an infection in her waterworks, a UTI they called it, and apparently that can make you delirious. Mum stayed on a ward for many days, mostly in bed. I visited as often as I could. She became incontinent. Mum wasn't before, and this was so embarrassing for her. She lost her appetite and lost weight. So much so, Mum lost her wedding ring. Mum cried and I cried too. I wanted Mum back in Greenleaf's. I felt she would do better there, where she knows everyone and they know her. After 2 weeks in hospital, they moved Mum to a rehabilitation hospital for a further 2 weeks. She only really got out of bed to sit in the chair that was next to her bed. At Greenleaf's, Mum used to walk with the staff to the communal room and chat to her friends. She was far more active there. I was so upset and felt guilty for letting Mum be sent to the hospital in the first place. She didn't feel either of us were being heard. I felt helpless to do anything. Mum had so many ward moves and other disruptions impacting on her quality of life. I told the doctors that Mum was much worse than before she came into hospital. She had now lost a lot of weight, was no longer walking, and lost her wedding ring while in hospital. How could people say that hospitals are always the safest place? It was only after Mum got home that I heard that she could have been seen in a unit called same-day emergency care. She could have had her scan at this unit, been assessed and treated for a UTI, and gone back to her care home, where she has carers around the clock. The lovely staff at Greenleaf's can give Mum her medication and keep a close eye on her. I would encourage all health and care staff who see someone like my mum in future to question whether admitting them to hospital is the right thing to do. It might be that that person could be better seen in a different setting and followed up at home. Sometimes there may be a simpler, more patient-friendly solution closer to home that supports a return to home as quickly as possible. I think it is also really important that the person and their family are properly engaged in important decisions and are asked what they want to happen. Thank you for listening.